Today we're going to be talking about how to build an efficient design and build process that supports a self-service BI program. And Mary, who's senior consultant at Resultant, is going to take us through her experiences. So Resultant are a services partner for Idera, who specialise in helping clients set up analytics program and get value from Idera products such as ER Studio and Warescape. And Mary tells me that she's got 30 years of experience and never failed in a warehousing project. So it's going to be an exciting presentation. Before Mary starts, I just want to take you through a couple of slides. So Mary, if we can go to slide 2. So this is a discussion that we've had with quite a few of our customers. So how much architecture is required? And there's kind of a sort of maturity model, a spectrum on this slide here. So we see customers operating, building an analytics program anywhere on this spectrum. So we've got quite a few customers that we've spoken to that have gone straight to code. They've got engineers and data analytics people that just literally go straight to code, creating tables in the warehouse. And that, surprisingly, is not uncommon. There are a lot of problems associated with that. And then we see customers that are going through the various gears here. Some will just take a very simple data modeling tool and create physical data models of the warehouse. Some will spend some time creating models of the requirements for the warehouse and then go straight to physical models. Others start to include the notion of standardization. So it's really sort of trying to work with the enterprise, with the business as a whole, to understand what is the information of the business. How can we sort of standardize with other data programs around the organization? So there's not just analytics, there might be database design, application interoperability, inter-business interoperability. So creating those standardized enterprise models that we talk about a lot in some of our webinars. And then we can start to include more sort of formal modeling of the requirements themselves. So you've been hearing us talking about programs like Data Mesh, where individual data products, we're using ER Studio to create logical models for those data products. We've also then, right down the right-hand side there, started to introduce sort of data governance and the data catalog. Everything we do, we're going to get the organization creating this data catalog, creating a good, effective business glossary, showing the language of the organization, mapping to the technical data dictionary of assets, both source data assets, the analytics program, the warehouse itself, the BI reports, the data products, etc. Introducing the governance layers, so we can see the policies for information and start to build sort of contracts on how people consume the outputs for our analytics program. So this is the sort of spectrum that we see. And if we go to the next slide, then that sort of axis of control. Now, as we add more control in, we get more cost. Now, this becomes problematic for some customers. Cost is an issue. Justifying higher costs is always difficult. The next item here, time to value. So as we add more control, we do more architecture. It's going to take more time. So a lot of our customers are driven by time to value. We just want to go as fast as we can. We don't want to sort of slow things down. As soon as the requirements comes up, we want to get tables in that warehouse, get BI reports created quickly. And then manageability. So the first two are kind of negatives as you add more control, but as you add more control, there are benefits. Manageability, for instance. So we see a lot of customers suffering from data swamps. We've got a lot of stuff in our warehouse. We don't know what data we've got there. As stuff changes, it's hard to manage. There's just too much stuff. So the sort of notion of self-service data and democratizing data can be challenging. You can end up with a sort of a graveyard of dashboards, views, and tables, some of which are not used by anybody. So things can get unmanageable quickly. And the next one, trust, is important. So as you add more control, more architecture, trust will grow. People will know exactly what data they're getting. They've got faith in its quality and its relevance and its provenance. And that then contributes to the next one, degree of value. So our consumers really want to sort of have faith in those data assets. We know that all assets that are in the analytics program are of value to the business. We're putting all our effort into creating assets that have value. Then the last one is risk. This is a big one. So as we're putting more, click again, Mary. So as we add more control, our risk decreases. We know exactly what data is where. We know what policies and rules applies to it. We can put in place contracts so that we know that the right people are getting the right data rather than the opposite, which is going to give risk to the organization. So I just want to add a bit of these two slides in here that just sort of show that axis of control and the sort of pros and cons of it. And Mary's now going to take us through her processes, the sort of things that she's learned over her 30 years of doing this sort of thing. And she can talk about some of these things. So Mary, over to you.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So I'm Mary Mink. I am definitely a data evangelist. You say the word data and I light up. Very passionate about turning raw data into actionable information for any company. And I'm always excited to learn new industries. I've been architecting data warehouses. He said 30 years. I just like to say over 25 years. But across many industries, the insurance industries, travel and entertainment. I was at Carnival Cruise Line for 11 years, and that's where I learned all my lessons learned there. You don't learn about data warehousing unless you stay. Like consultants that come and then implement and leave, they don't see what's left to manage, and that's where I learned a lot. By staying there and really seeing what worked and what didn't. And I like to share those experiences with everybody. And then healthcare, retail, I've helped out at Office Depot and pharmaceuticals, law enforcement, court systems. I mean, you can see that it's all over. And I also worked at a human resources software company. And I think everybody should work at a software company because that's where you learn to be truly agile and have a really tight release system to implement your data. So then I've been like I'm a Data Vault evangelist also, and I started up the Data Vault North American User Group about 2.5 years ago, which has been very successful, offering events every quarter. And I have been a presenter at the Worldwide Data Vault Consortium a number of years. And I've implemented data governance programs, IT, for, over 35 years. And certified professional with Data Vault and Business Intelligence and SnowPro. So I want to jump in to the presentation.
Mary, before you get going, a little bit of housekeeping. So for everybody, that if you've got questions, there's a little console panel. You can add questions there. We'll try and answer a few questions along the way. We've got as you can see there from the agenda, a Q&A session at the end. We'll try and get to your questions then. Sorry, Mary.
Okay. So, and a little bit over the agenda, what we're going to cover. We want to know what type of data warehouse you have, and you may not know, but there's a number of methodologies out there, and I'm going to kind of go over the history of them, and they've been influencers for me. I like a hybrid approach, but we're going to go over that, and you can start thinking about, well, what kind of data warehouse do you have? Or maybe you don't have a data warehouse, and this is going to give you ideas of how you should be constructing it. And the approach is I'll go over the Agile. I do top down being the business is at the top, always people at the top, and then a bottom up at the same time, which is the data and bringing that together. So I'm going to go over the process that I've been following, or we've been following at Resultant, and then I'm going to walk you through the steps, the actual steps to implement that, and show you examples. And of course, I'm going to be showing you data models because I love data models. My example is going to be with Data Vault. So you're going to learn a little bit of Data Vault if you don't already know it along the way. Not too much, just enough to understand what I'm talking about. And then, and of course, the end goal is to enable your self-service BI for your organization. And then Jamie's going to do a demo in ER Studio and Team Server Portal in particular, where all the work that we do leads into that, giving that back to the enterprise, giving them data models and metadata, and being able to answer their questions, how to get to the data. That's key in self-service BI. And then we're going to have the Q&A at the end. So I'm told I have like 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to go quickly through my slides, and then like 15 minutes for the demo, and hopefully, I guess another 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. Okay, so a little bit of data warehouse history, and these are the people who have influenced the way I do data warehousing. Okay, and by the way, I've implemented probably about 15 data warehouses, and I've never had, they've all been successful. So I'm going to say I'm 15 and 0. Okay. So the process that I'm going to show you, I'm hoping that you'll learn some tips and tricks and maybe help to do things maybe better. Or maybe you're already doing it and doing a great job. So anyway, we start out with Bill Inman in 1992, and he introduced to us the enterprise data warehouse. And his book, and these are all books that I've read and that have been contributors to the way I do things, building the data warehouse. And his was more the bus architecture. And I'm going to kind of show you pictures of those so that you'll get what I'm talking about if you don't already know. And then in 1995, the Data Warehouse Institute was founded, and I started going to that every year and learning from all of, all the gurus and applying that and growing throughout the year. So you're going to get a benefit of all of that knowledge. But I'm a big believer in TDWI. And then along came in 1996. Ralph Kimball, he introduced to us the Data Warehouse Toolkit, and his methodology was Star Schema. And then in 1998 to 2000, Dan Lindstedt was working at the Department of Defense, and he came up with Data Vault methodology, and he implemented a 3 petabyte data warehouse. And back in this, we didn't have our MPP architectures at the time, so he needed to make sure that what he built was performant, that it was scalable, that it was resilient to change, all these things. And so this is when he introduced Data Vault, and this also enables us for the real-time data warehousing and streaming of data and things like that. And I'm going to explain why a little later. And then he came out with his first book in 2011, which was Supercharge the Data Warehouse. And then in 2016, he upgraded the Data Vault methodology into Data Vault 2.0, and he published his Building a Scalable Data Warehouse with Data Vault 2.0, along with Michael Ashimke. And then in 2019, John Giles, he's been doing this all of his career, is building business-centered models, and he published The Elephant in the Fridge, great book too. And so this is where I believe in his methodologies because of his business-centric focus, which is also part of Data Vault. And so this is what has influenced me over the years and gotten to be able to help to build successful data warehouses. So what kind of data warehouse do you have? Think about this. I happen to like a hybrid. I like the best of all worlds, okay? And so with Inman in his bus architecture, he introduced, hey, these are all of our sources. In the beginning, we all would do reporting and analytics directly off of the sources, and that was impacting those sources performantly. And so that's when we started saying, hey, we've got to do something to get this data, into a place where we can all access it and do our analytics. So he brought together into a centralized area an enterprise data warehouse, and this is in third normal form. Okay, so bringing all that data together, integrating it, and then pushing it out into data marts so that we could do analytics. Again, it's integrated. Then Kimball's methodology, his approach was to take the application sources and push them directly into these data marts in different subject areas. So the integrated area is not in this approach. What I do love about Kimball is that that the star schema, the facts and the dimensions. It is so great for the business. The business understands the data that way, slicing and dicing data for their metrics, to get their metrics. And I have some data models that I'm going to go over that. But that is what Kimball brought to us. So each one of these gentlemen brought a good tactic or way to do data warehousing. And then along comes now modern data warehouse. I can consider those conventional, is Data Vault. And Data Vault allows us to bring all the sources together into it's actually a raw vault, and I'm going to show you the different components too for Data Vault, but it brings it together into a centralized area. And this is like your data lake, because it is a mirror image. It does store a mirror image of all your source data, but it's organized. Today we have a lot of data lakes out there, and they end up becoming data swamps because we're just getting all the data. We're getting all the data, it's all there, but it's not that well organized. So this helps us to organize the data, and I'm going to show you some diagrams of what I'm talking about there. And then everything else is virtual. So you have your center of the truth of all the data is integrated, just like Inman's approach. This is integrated, and then it's moving into views. Okay, everything's virtual, where your star schemas are virtual. If you need for data analytics and Power BI, Tableau, any of those kind of tools love star schemas, right? And then you might need that data for your data science or your AI applications, and they usually want like real wide data, flat data. And so you just have a view on top of this data vault, and then you may have your mobile apps might need this data, or your websites. Then you could go ahead and have a canonical view of that same data. So this is what I kind of call a one-hop architecture for modern data warehouse. So you always have to have an architectural diagram when you start a data warehouse. You need to know where you're headed. And so this is an example of that. And you can see, again, this is a hybrid solution, because here, this center point, which is Data Vault 2.0, is in the center, and it is integrated, and it is your data lake over here, and it's all integrated. And so that's actually Inman's approach, right? This is centralizing that data. And over here we have our info marts, and you'll see that it's a fact and dimensions. This is more of the Kimball approach, using the star schema. And then again, you have that this data could be streamed into service layers going to your websites, your mobile apps. We can have our sources. They could be from databases. It could be Oracle. It could be SQL Server. It could be in the cloud, flat files, however that data is being brought together. And you can also do eventing of that data in Data Vault, because it accepts data out of sequence, however you want to provide that data. So you're going to have something like this for your data warehouse. You have to know what is the architecture and what is your goals in mind. So this slide, these are actually ER Studio models of data warehouses that we've implemented. And this is at the high level. So if you do know ER Studio at the main model level, and if you hit that hierarchical button, which I love to do for Data Vault, because Data Vaults are pattern design models. And I'm going to go over there's only a couple of objects in this pattern design. And so up at the top, you see the things at the top. They're actually called hubs. In the middle, the objects in the middle are our links or our relationships. And at the bottom, these are the satellites that contain the mirror image data from your source systems. So this is why I call it an organized data lake, okay? Then the bottom one is a traditional third normal form, an Inman, okay? An integrated area, but when you look at it, you see all these constraints, all the relationships. You see, these have relationships, but they're a little bit more organized, where this is, you know, kind of all over the place. And if you had to change a table, an object, you had a change request, and you had to change that object, and let's say that it was in the center. Let's say it's right there. Okay, it's right in the middle of all of that. It's kind of worrisome because you see all the constraints and the impacts that you might have when you change that object. So if you look at a data vault, let's say that object is right here. That is a lot easier. It's compartmentalized here, you see? So I have to change that. This doesn't scare me. It's like, okay, all right, I see exactly what I need to change, and I'm really only impacting that area versus, you know, all of these other lines. All right, so hopefully you've thought about what I've said and you're thinking about what your data warehouse looks like, and you're probably a hybrid approach and using different concepts. That's great. You know, use the best of all worlds. So now what I want to do is go over, we have an Agile business-centric approach that we follow every time we implement a data warehouse. So the first thing that we do what I'm going to show you is the steps to implement a top-down, again, the top it being the business and that bottom-up solution, and then at a high level. And then I'm going to go through what does it take to onboard a new subject area or a new domain in the life cycle. And I like to think Agile, okay? And what would that release cycle look like, okay? And then we'll go over that, and that's going to be kind of at the high level also. And then I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you some business models. I'm going to go over what I've been doing for like 20 years, which I call a fact qualifier matrix, which is to bring the data requirements together and to make sure that we are meeting the business needs. And also we use it for design, and we'll go into detail. And then we have to design the target data models. We have to reverse engineer the data, the data sources that we're going to be bringing in. We have to design our raw vault, and we have to design our star schemas. And so all of these, I'm going to show you some of the models and I've been using ER Studio for like, I guess about 20 years. And it has aided in this process. I use it every day. So this is a business-centric approach that we follow. It's all about people, process, and technology. Okay, and when we start up at the top, it's all about people. Okay, people first, right? And you have to have champions of what we're going to build. And you might have those champions, but sometimes we go to clients and we don't, you know, you don't have that organization set up. So you have to find them. And the best way to find our champions are the people who are complaining about the data the most. Okay. And those are the people that most people run from. I gravitate towards those people. They're the ones, they care about the data, okay? They're going to be the most helpful for you. They're the ones that are going to end up being your champions, okay? So find your champions, and we have to start interviewing them and understanding the business first, okay? So then we have to understand the ontology. of their business. We have to understand the domains and the subject areas. And we're also, those are the top down, and the bottom up in this area would be that enterprise architecture. Let's start putting that together. So we're doing the top down and the bottom up at the same time. Okay. Then the next area is the taxonomies. We have to understand what are all the things in that business, in the domains, within the domains. What are the things in the business? What are the relationships between them? How do they interact? We have to understand that. And then the bottom up would be, that's the business. So the top down. The bottom up would be, we have to reverse engineer the database sources, or the sources. It could be files, wherever the sources are. We have to understand those sources. Okay, we're going to bring these two things together. We also have to profile the sources. We have to understand that data. So you've got your top down, understanding the taxonomies, and the bottom up, understanding the sources, going on at the same time. Then the next area that we focus on is, I call it, be a knowledge sponge. Okay. We want to gain that business knowledge. We need to understand the requirements. This is where that qualifier matrix comes in. We want to understand the KPIs. We want to see what reporting they're doing today. That data, what you see in those reports, are data requirements, and we need to list them out. Okay, we need to know that these are what we want to get to. We want to understand their pain points. That person that's complaining all the time, we want to listen to them, and we want to document what are their issues. Okay, so we need to gather all this information, and then the next area that you're going to drop to is you have to architect that solution. So now we're ready to design our conceptual models, our logical. This is a big area for ER Studio. Okay, you're going to be designing that raw vault. You're going to design the business vault. We're going to design the star schemas. We're going to marry those things together. Okay, and that becomes the input for your developers. Then they know what they need to deliver. Okay, and then the next area is the architecture and the infrastructure. And now, I know that we did that up at the beginning. We had an enterprise architecture. Well, that's our goal. Okay, by the time you get down to this area, now you know everything. You know what server it's on. You know all of the databases. You know the schemas. You know everything. And that architectural diagram needs to be really detailed, okay, so that other people can follow it and understand it. And now you're at the last step, and I call it pushing the Data Vault easy button. And hopefully, if you do go Data Vault, you utilize, since it's a pattern design model, there's at least a dozen vendors out there who have built acceleration tools, and I'm telling you, it works. I mean, you can build raw vault models quickly. Again, you need to follow this business-centric approach to make sure that you're following your standards and that you're building what the business needs, okay? But these tools, having all of these things in place, having the models that you know what it is you're trying to build, okay? That is key, but having an acceleration tool will get you to the finish line a lot quicker, okay? So this is a business-centric approach that I always follow, that we follow at Resultant. Now, this is more of an actionable, like a Gantt, and this is when you know what your subject area or domain is, and you're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to get this going, and you want to build it in an agile way, okay? And you can have many people working at the same time in different areas and bring this all together. So the first three columns in this are what I consider in an agile world like phase 0, okay, or the stage 0, whatever you want to say. These are the things that you're prepping to get into that agile release cycle. Okay, once you have all of these things, then the last two lanes are really what is going to be your agile development cycle, okay? Where you have your business stories and delivering. You could have, like, I don't know, two-week sprints, something like that. Okay, so these first three columns, the first area, of course, starting with the business, okay, business-centric. So we've got our business collaboration. The first initiation are just your regular project things that you always do. You know, you've got your scope and all the subject areas. You've got a RACI matrix. You've got your project schedule. You've got some architectures and all of these kind of things that you're going to set up for any project, right? No different, right? And then we're going to have our business data requirements. We have to collect all of this. We have to know data security rules. We do our fact qualifier matrix. This is a little picture of it. I'll have a better slide to explain it. Get your business requirements, collect all of these things. And this fact qualifier matrix is going to feed into what's over here as you're designing the STAR schema. So we need that to design the STAR schema. At the same time, okay, you can have learning your ontology, okay? We need to build a business model, and that business model is input, okay, at the same time, okay, this is top down, right? Bottom up, we would be reversing the database source or the files, understanding that source and putting it into a model, okay? So now we have that source model. We have our business model. We know the things in the business that they're looking for. We have our data requirements. We know what kind of questions they're trying to ask. Now it's time to design our raw vol. So we take all of these inputs, we design our raw vol. Yay. Now, once we have that design of the raw vol, we can get our developers going, because all they need is to see what that is. And by the way, those models have metadata and data security tagging on them and all of these great things too. But what the developer is looking for is, what is it you want me to build? And if you give them a picture, you get what you give them, okay? So they're off building that. And now our architects, now we have to build, now we have our STAR schema model, yay. We have our raw vault model, yay. Now we have to build the in-between, which is a business vault model, which is the glue between the raw vault and the InfoMart. It's the glue. So we have to build a model for that. I don't have it on the picture, but we build that model. And we also have to have source to target mappings. Those source to target mappings, you can't get away from it. They have the business rules. They have what we need to do, any transformations that need to be done. Okay, so once we've got that, the business vault, now you throw that over the fence. Okay, and now the developers are building your business vault for you. Once the business vault is developed, now we can build our views, okay, which are the STAR schema design, and we have that. Now, also at the same time, as these things are developed, as a raw vault's developed, as a business vault's developed, as the STAR schemas are developed, as those are developed, we can be picking up stories to test and do validation. And I prefer automated validation over anything. And especially because the fact that raw vault is a pattern design model, you can really build metadata validations that go across the whole database. It's awesome. Okay, and then at the end, here we go. We deliver a dashboards, reporting, analytics. I don't have all the other but you can, feeding to your AI or streaming your data, whatever it is you need to do, you've got it. Okay, so this is what we follow each time. I'm hoping you're writing down your questions and jotting them and putting them in the chat. And if you do have questions, we're going to go back, just kind of put what the subject is and what your question is, so I can easily answer that at the end. So then let's jump down into when I say ontology. Okay, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't, you should be able to figure out the ontology within days if you get the right people in the room. This is an example from one of a law enforcement company that we built a data warehouse for. And so you just have to know, what are those domains, what are those subject areas in the business, okay? And so here you can see for law enforcement, it's the occurrences like CAT events, when people call in to the police, and the people that are involved, the employees or the police officers, or the arrests that happen, tickets and warrants, things like that. These are all areas, domains or subject areas in the business. We have to understand those, and we have to put it into smaller components so that we're not just like implementing thousands of tables into our data lake and it's not organized, right? So, and then we have to prioritize them, okay? And then we can get going. But and just choose which areas, and especially with Data Vault, you can do it out of sequence. It doesn't matter. Pick whatever's important to your business first. So then the next thing that we're going to do is we have to understand the taxonomies. So how do these areas, once you've got the domains, now you break down into a smaller domain, okay? You have to understand what are the things in the business and how do they interact. And so I'm going to be following a theme here. I happen to have been sitting with my daughter buying a car at the time that I came up with this idea, and I figured, well, everybody goes through buying a car, so everybody can relate to this example. So when purchasing a vehicle, you've got a customer making the purchase, you have an agent who's selling you the car, and you have a vehicle. Well, it could be an online sale, but let's just say this is in person, okay? Example. And then what brings these entities together is a sales contract, okay? So we're going to be going through that concept when I'm showing you these data model examples. Okay, so we have to understand the business. We have to identify the players, their roles, all of these kind of things. We're identifying data requirements and things like that. This is an example from another client. This was a home builder in South Florida, and this is a real life business model for them. And it was really important to have this because when we jump into building our raw vault, we want to make sure that we have the things in the business, okay? And this allows us to identify that. So then the next thing that we're going to do is this fact qualifier matrix. And I mean, a lot of people will already recognize this kind of format if you do Kimball, because this is based off of his bus matrix. When you're trying to figure out, you know, what is your star schema going to look like? Well, I call it a bus matrix on steroids. And the reason why I say it's on steroids is it's a little bit more, because I'll have a listing of all the data requirements and they're numbered. You see that they're numbered. And then we have across the top the things in the business, okay? And I've kind of color coded them where we got our calendar, and then we have our customer information is yellow, and then our vehicle is the orange, and then the sales agent is the blue, and then we have dealership info, which is the purple. And then going so horizontally across, and then going vertically is our metrics. And so what goes across the top becomes our dimensions, and what goes vertically becomes our facts, okay? And so this is how I like to start the modeling process, okay? It doesn't start in a data model, okay? It starts here with the requirements. So another thing that I like to do is, instead of just having these numbers, and the numbers represent in the crosshairs or cross cells, answering that business question, okay? What data does it take to answer that business question? So a lot of times what I like to do, you might be using ClearQuest to do your requirements tracking, or maybe ADO. And so what I like to do is put that number so that I can always tie back my data requirements to a story, and we can group those stories together into a release, and know what's in there. So when you look at this, let's just go through these questions quickly because I know I only have 30 minutes. So, but let's say we have agent productivity. What were the total monthly sales by agent? So I know that I got agent, so I'll go to the blue area, and I know that we're looking at sales, vehicle sales. So you can see that that's the cross section. That's the kind of data that we need to answer that data requirement. So the next one is customer by area. So how many customers live within a 10-mile radius of each dealership? Well, when I interviewed the business, they only told me about, and when I look at the data, I only know of customer information, vehicle information, and sales information. But now they're bringing up in this question, they need dealership. I'm like, I don't know where that data is coming from, but I'm still going to put it in my fact qualifier matrix, right? Because that's what they asked. How many customers live in a 10-mile radius of each dealership? So I add that in, and that's question number 2. So I can see that question number 2 is looking at the customer address to get the location, and it's going to do a count of customers, and it's going to, they want to see it by dealership. But I put that in red because that's a gap. I don't know where the dealership data is coming from. So I've already started identifying my gaps. Then the next question, year-over-year sales by month. So year-over sales by month is looking at, let's see, it's question number 3. So I can easily go to this and go, oh, it's on the calendar. We're looking by month, and we're looking at the sales price. Boom. Now they might want to say that they want to look at it by dealership, because I think they probably would want to look at it that way. And in that case, if they had said that, then I would have had a 3 and a 4 over here in red. Okay, and this is how you start walking through your data requirements and mapping them. The last one, number 4, car model sales. Which car had the most sales last month? Okay, we can answer that question because here I know that we have models, so we're looking by model, and we want to do sales price, and maybe they want to do date to, yeah, they said month, so so we let's see, 3, or no, we're in 4. I think I don't have that one mapped, but I think you're getting the picture. So by model, oh yeah, I have contract date, but I probably would want to have it under the calendar, which becomes a date dim. And then also the vehicle sales price, and whoops, I'm over on the other side. So the vehicle sales price, the contract by model. Okay, so this is how we map our data requirements, and then this is helpful. This is what we use to understand what we're going to build in our info mart. What are the facts going to look like? And I can already see I'm going to have an auto sales fact, and then what are the dimensions going to be? And I already know the dimensions are going to be my calendar dim, my customer dim, my vehicle dim, and the agent dim. So bottom up, we need to be understanding the source at the same time that this is going on. So we want to reverse engineer the data source. So this is what it would look like. And again, remember, I don't know about the dealership. All I know about is customer, vehicle, agent, and a sales contract. And you can see that it has the data attributes, and then the primary key is the customer ID. For customer, vehicles, VIN, sales agent is agent ID, and the sales contract is a sales contract number. And you can see these relationships between them coming into our sales contract. And this is in ER Studio, by the way. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Data Vault, the objects that are modeled in the pattern design model, just so that you'll understand what I'm talking about on the next slide. So the first thing that you have, and really the first 3 are the important ones that we're going to be talking about. in the raw vault. Okay, we have a hub. It's our business key. It's just a business key. The link object, those are our relationships. The satellite, that's our raw data content. That's really what makes this a raw, like a data lake. Okay, and then the fourth and fifth objects, the pit is a point in time object, and it's a helper for our dimensions. And the bridge, these are pointers to our pits, and these are for performance, by the way. And this what allows us to be virtual. And the bridges are helpers for facts. So here's two data model examples. This is the source that we've already gone over, and this is what we're going to design. We're going to design that raw vault before we code. Okay, we're going to know what does it need to look like. Okay, and then so now you can see this. Now the hubs at the top, those are the blue. You can see that they have the business keys. Now, in this case, the business key doesn't have to be the primary key of a table, especially if you have like this non-intelligent sequence number from an application. You want to kind of stay away from that and get the real business key, because the goal is to integrate this. And that's the way that we do it in Data Vault. So you can see here's our customer right here. And then coming over here, you've got your business key, okay? Abstracted, right? It's abstracted out. And then the satellite, you can notice that it's all the data columns that you had in your source. Okay, again, these satellites are really that data lake there for you. And you don't touch them. You never, ever, ever change them. Do not transform. Okay, this is raw data in the satellite. And this is what I call a hub sat, because it's right off of the hub, and you can always tell that by our naming conventions at HK_H. That's I know that this is a hub sat because of that. The other thing that I want to point out is that we use hash keys in a raw vault, and it is a deterministic hash key. So we have got the customer ID hashed, okay, is what our key is going to be. And you want to do that because your business keys could be variable character, however long, you know, and so hashing it makes it concise and easier to join data together. And it also, by being a deterministic hash key, this is what allows us to load data out of sequence, and you'll understand that in a quick minute here. Okay, so we have a hub sat for vehicle, same concept. You can see the vehicle information down here. Then we have the same concept for the agent and the agent satellite. So now let's talk about the contract. This is what I call a link, or what we call a link satellite. Okay, and you can even see that in the naming convention because I have HK_L. I know that's a link sat. So this is the link is these relationships that you see. You see these lines? Those relationships that are constraints in a database, they're abstracted and they become a row in a table that is a linked table. This is a great thing for databases like Snowflake, okay, because Snowflake doesn't have constraints. So when you implement something in Snowflake, if I implemented a data vault that had a raw vault that had 800 objects, if I reverse engineer that database in Snowflake, all you get is 800 objects that have no relationships, okay? And the only way that you can tie them together easily is because of the naming conventions, okay? So this link, it consists of, you can see that like this line for customer is actually this customer hash key, okay? This line right here, customer hash key. And then you have your vehicle hash key. Then you have your agent hash key. And you also have a contract hash key because a contract was identified by a contract number and we wanted to keep track of those. So that is what that relationship is. And then we swing off of it everything that was in the sales contract. Boom, right there. So that's how we design this. And this raw vol is what goes to our developer to build this. Now they can use these acceleration tools, what I call data vol acceleration tools, Wordscape 3D, for instance, and I give them this model and they know what to do. And we also are able, when it comes time to test, we know what we're testing, okay? We don't just push the easy button and let the tools generate it. It will never work. You'll never get what you expect. You always have to customize these acceleration tools for your naming standards, and they need to be tweaked. You need to have some rules. I've never seen any of them out of the board, out of the gate, push the button and it generated 100%. Okay, this is how we know by looking at this raw vol, this is what we need to generate. Okay, so this is the final step, and then we're getting really close to getting to the demo time. Not sure where I am time check, but I'm going to hurry this along. Okay, so we have our raw vault model, and we have to take our raw vault model, and we have to map it. And again, this is where an STM document, a source to target mapping document comes into place. We have to have that. And I'm not going to go into detail on what looks for that. That's another session. But basically, we have to take this raw vault and we have to get it into a format that the business can easily understand, which is our star schema info mart. So you can easily see, here's our customer, there's our customer satellite. This, boom, that becomes our dimension. Oh, one other thing I want to mention about Data Vault. In our raw vault, the satellites are time variant. And what I mean by that, you'll see that the primary key is not only the hash key, but it also is the load date. Okay, so it's time variant. And every time anything changes in there, we keep up with a hash diff key, which is a hash key of all the attributes concatenated together, delimited by pipes. And that's where we compare the data when it's coming in to make sure we only put new data. Okay, and so this, and then this hash key. So if you want to do a type 2 dimension, my example is a type 1, but if you want to do a type 2 dimension, it's easy to do because you've got that date. Okay, so here we go. We've got our customer. We're going to map this customer satellite, raw vault satellite, into our dimension. You can see all the attributes are in there. And then this customer key is actually that hash key. Okay. And then we do the same thing for our vehicle. Same thing. That hash key becomes our vehicle key, and we've got all of our columns that the business needs to see. Then we've got our agent. Same thing. Easy peasy. Okay, now we got our dimensions, and we've built our calendar, which is, some people call it a date dim, but we've got our calendar dimension, and now, and then we've got our fact. Okay, and our fact, I like to always put all the business keys in this model are highlighted in this green color. I like to have our key. Again, the key, it would be the hash key. In this case, it's a link hash key. It becomes my contract key. Then we have our contract number, which is our business key. The customer key, hash key, customer hash key is our customer key, our business key, and so forth, right?
Mary, I'm just going to do a quick time check here. We're 5 minutes before time. Now, you're giving us some really good stuff here. So I think we're going to carry on running. Now, I know many people on the webinar have probably got to drop to other sessions. What we're going to do is we'll continue, we'll roll on past the top of the hour. We'll be recording this session, and we'll send out the recording to everybody afterwards so you can tune back in later on. Carry on, Mary.
I'm done. I'm on my last slide. I just wanted to show that was the next design. And the last thing that we do is we make sure that we met those business requirements, okay? And that we did. So, okay, I'm sorry I took so long. Okay.
That's fine. That's fine. Anything else you want to say on this slide before I hop over?
No, just that we use our fact qualifier matrix to build our test cases and make sure that what we built met those requirements. That's it. I'm done.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks for that. So
For-
I'm going to hop across to my screen now. So I was going to give a little bit of a demo on ER Studio and how it supports some of what Mary's been talking about. I was really going to focus on the sort of the output to the business users. So in the process, Mary would have been using one of the other ER Studio components, Data Architect. She would have done all the modeling in that tool. ER Studio Data Architect's got some really great tools for supporting Data Vault production as well. So to be able to convert from source models or logical models to Data Vault structures. What we're looking at on the screen now is our team server components. This is the web front end for business users to be able to browse for information. So I thought I'd take you through a little bit of a sort of a journey through this. So we're going to start off as a business user looking for information. And we're going to use the sort of data catalog elements of the tool. So I'm going to start to search for a business term. So I'm going to search for the term party and go and find the term I'm looking for, party. There it is. So I can read all about this business term here. I can read its definition. I can see various sort of classifications and policy information around this piece of information. Party is a bit generic. So what I'm going to do is drill down and see the taxonomy of party. So Mary was talking about sort of taxonomies and things. It's a really important start to the whole process. So here I've got the taxonomy of party, and I'm really interested in customer information. So I can drill down to customer. And you can see at any point, this business term here in the ER Studio data catalog, we can synchronize with whatever data catalog tool you're using, either Calibra or Purview. So this same business term here is available within Microsoft Purview, and here it is within, oops, I've just logged me out, within Calibra. It's the same information, the tools are synchronizing automatically. So I'm really interested in customer, and perhaps I'm interested in a specific piece of information from customer. I want to know in our analytics program, does piece of information live in my data warehouse, in my info mart? So I can look at perhaps some of the attributes of customer. So perhaps I'm really interested in customer date of birth. So I'm going to again drill down into this particular business term, and it's telling me, hey, this is PII data, critical data. Okay, that's fine. So now let's see, where is this data in terms of our estate? So this view here shows me all the different data models I've got of different assets that contain customer date of birth. Maybe I've got an enterprise logical data model, and I can see that I've got an entity in there called customer. That contains date of birth. That's very good. I can go and see our standardization of customer and customer date of birth. I could go and see there's a particular source system here. We've modeled the source system. This is what Mary was showing earlier on. So I've got a physical table called customer, and it's got a column DOB. Great. Okay, and there's a logical model that goes with it. But the data warehouse itself, if I expand this, I can see that I've got a logical model of the data warehouse, and then I've got different physical models that represent the different layers of the warehouse. So I'm really interested in the info mart. So I can go and see that there's a table called D customer that contains a column called date of birth. And I can hop across, just to speed up things, I'm going to hop across, there's the actual info mart that contains our dimension customer attached to the fact table there. So this is the model that Mary's produced. And each of these tables can be mapped to business terms and form my data catalog. But the process that Mary would have gone through is, and I can go and sort of see all this stuff in my model explorer here. So the original source asset that she was modeling, that's going to provide the source data for all of this. So we've modeled that, we've reversed engineered it, we've gone through each table, we can document it. We've then designed the Data Vault model. We could publish this to all users. Mary's told me before that she prefers not to allow business users to have access to all of this. We can choose who sees these different models. But here's the Data Vault model that Mary's created. And then, as we said, there's the, whoops, keep clicking on the wrong one. There's the star schema that satisfies the requirements that you're looking at. So that was a real whistle-stop tour of Team Server. And if you're interested in Team Server or Data Architect, then there'll be a link at the end. We can do more detailed demonstrations.
Jamie, could you show like the metadata? I think I put some metadata on the fact contract. Also, the fact that I've tagged the data security for PII for customer data. I just wanted to show that what we do in Data Architect is available for the enterprise. It's knowledge for the enterprise, okay, and at their fingertips. So you'll see that there's metadata about, the columns, what they are. And then if you look at the customer, I think that's where if we can look at the security objects.
So we go back to our customer table. Yep. And we were looking originally at our DOB fields, for instance, weren't we?
Yes.
And that was the one that's mapped to that business term that we were looking at earlier on. So coming at it from a slightly different direction, but as Mary said, so she's put things like a PII sensitivity flag. So that sort of marries up with the business term that we were looking at back here. So data stewards have said at a high level that customer date of birth is PII, it's sensitive data, critical sensitivity data. And then Mary's reflected that when she's modeled the actual star schema and put all that information in here as well. But all of this is published to business users.
But my point is, it's not a pretty picture. It's not just a pretty picture. The model is not just a pretty picture. It has all the metadata. It leads you into your governance. It leads you into your self-service BI. The other thing that I wanted you to show is, or if you could, like query on, I'm a new person. I know nothing. I came new to the company, and they asked me to do some kind of reporting on sales. If I type in the word sales, what's it going to show me?
Yeah, so you've got various sort of journeys that you can go through. So you could sort of search across all data models for the word sales. You might want to sort of come to the business glossary and search for a business term that's going to be common across your sort of Purview or Calibra business glossary. So like we did with date of birth, we found the business term and we can say, well, where is that in terms of all of my different models? So there's various options you've got to search for that. Cool. Just looking at time, I think it's worth going to a few questions. We've got a few good questions here. So there's a question on data mesh. You mentioned data mesh earlier. Does ER Studio work with the new Microsoft Purview features around data mesh? The answer is absolutely yes. We've been doing a lot of work with Microsoft. So this is where data models become really, really important. So having good quality enterprise scale logical models that gives us a standardization across all our different data products. So where Mary was showing the sort of the business data requirements side of the slide, then that's really where a lot of that sort of data product design work goes in, the enterprise data model side, and that's where we work very tightly with Microsoft Purview. Mary, anything you want to add to that?
No, it works together.
Yeah, absolutely. Question on, does ER Studio work with Warescape around the Data Vault modeling? Yeah, there's lots of options there. I mean, Mary, you've had loads of experience on this. We've got customers. So Mary's been showing you how we do a lot of the Data Vault design work in ER Studio itself. A lot of those models, we've got an integration with Warescape, so we can push a lot of those models across to Warescape to do a lot of the automation. Again, very quickly, anything you want to say on that, Mary?
Oh, well, I've done a lot of projects with Warescape, and yeah, I mean, this whole process, works together with it. Yes, definitely.
quick question on the business modeling side, ontologies and taxonomies. How does ER Studio do that? So we've looked at sort of some of the business glossary side of things, some of the taxonomies there, the sort of enterprise conceptual, enterprise logical models, and I didn't really show any of that in the demo. There's a quick picture down somewhere in here. We can show that another time. So yeah, there's the enterprise conceptual model. So we can produce these sort of simple box diagrams in the tool. For more sort of formal, more structured development of taxonomies, we can build an enterprise logical model. I think in some of the previous webinars, we've shown how we can either sort of bring those in as reference models, or you can build your own. We can build them ground up. Lots of options there on the ontologies and taxonomy side. Again, Mary, anything to add to that?
No.
Good, we're rattling through these questions now. So someone says, I'm new to Data Vault. We have an existing data warehouse with SQL Server using Kimball and star schema. How will Data Vault help us in this situation?
Well, okay, if you're following, okay, I would, I mean, I love Kimball star schema. Okay, I've been saying that all along. So I would take your SQL Server source and I would put it into Raw Vault, and then I would build the Business Vault based off of the existing star schemas that you have. Okay, that's what I would do. I mean, I'm not sure. You're probably going directly from the source into the star schema is what I'm thinking. But it's almost like you want to, if you put the Raw Vault in there, it's gonna help you down the road.
Thanks, Mary.
But don't throw away your star schema. That's what the business wanted, and that's what you delivered, right? You're just changing the plumbing.
Very good. Someone says, by the way, the VIN is a PII identifier. I don't get to see that very often. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what is PII data? There's a whole webinar in itself, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah. Is there a community edition of ER Studio? No, there's not. We do free trials. There's a variety of different editions with various price points. We can talk to you about that after the session. And yeah, I think that's all for questions that we got time for. Yeah, so if there's anything else after this that we haven't answered, then let us know. You can scan this code here and get in touch with us. Other than that, I think thanks very much for your time. Mary, thank you for your very interesting presentation. And
I'm glad you liked it.
to see everybody again soon. Thanks very much for watching.